Okay, we are recording just as a short
Cool.
introduction. This is the Shared Visions Story Workshop second edition. We met last week and went over a ton of concepts and ideas, and then we're going to pick it up where we left off, and I will hand it over to Mel.
Mm. Thanks, Joseph. So what I've done, popped a link in the chat to the Figma board if anyone doesn't have that yet. Um, I've opened this up so that we can all edit this. Yeah, Figma allows you to create like a 24-hour window where everyone can kind of contribute. You don't actually need an account to do that. So hopefully if you click on the link, you'll be able to use FigJam. It's a fairly straightforward program, but if anyone has any sort of trouble sort of finding their way around, let me know. All right, let me share my screen. Okay. All right. So yeah, last week I talked about a few kind of story ideas that we could potentially use to create a bit of a thread uh, in the documentary, something that ties the whole thing together and create a little bit of a theme that can work as a bit of a metaphor. But yeah, essentially storytelling device. So today we'll be able to get everyone's ideas and kind of discuss them collaboratively. So the first thing we will do is we'll claim an idea board. So can I just get an idea of like, does anyone have ideas that they want to share? Like, is this
I
Has
have one.
anyone come prepared to some degree?
I have,
Yeah, I
Okay.
have. Sorry,
no
everyone's going at
problem.
once.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I, I,
It sounds like there's a couple. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Cool.
I have a fig jam. I just grabbed a whole bunch of
Yeah.
screenshots and kind of graded
Yeah.
them. So yeah, I have
Cool.
something ready to go.
All right. So what I've done is I've prepared a bunch of different sort of idea boards that I'm calling them. I've got little sticky notes on top of them. So if you have an idea that you want to share with the group, just pop your name in the sticky note, and then that's kind of your board to drop things into. If we need more boards, we can add more boards. If you have more than one idea, we can create multiple boards. So the idea is that we're, just using text and images, just drop anything that, might help visualize your idea. Um, you can, I don't know, is it, oh, Christian, you're on the Vision Pro. I'm not sure if it's going to be easier to do this on a desktop, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm mirroring my Mac, so no worries.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, cool. All right, yeah, so just kind of show the primary elements along with any additional concepts. There's no sort of hard and fast rules, just sort of do what you can to sort of convey the concept. What we'll do is we'll allow kind of 5 to 15 minutes for this process to sort of happen. If we need a bit longer, that's fine as well. And then once we're complete, we can get everyone to talk about their ideas and we can discuss them as a group. And then we can kind of use a bit of a dot voting process, not to sort of, rule out any ideas completely, but just kind of get a gauge of, what ideas might be a little bit more popular. And yeah, we can talk about them in more detail. So, and we might end up using more than one idea if there's a complementary theme and if it makes sense to do so, or we might combine ideas in a new way. So, yeah, the process is designed to get everyone's input and move forward with a collaborative group consensus. So, yeah, that first process, I can see people are starting to do that. So I'm going to start the timer and yeah, put on a bit of think music. There we go. And you can resize images if it looks like there's some big ones, but
Yeah, I had a lot, so I just pasted it below the
yeah,
the
do you want me to
post.
resize them for you?
Yeah, like I mean, I guess people can just zoom in, so whatever works.
Yeah, so if I can kind of just
Yeah,
do that, then they'll fit on your board and
there we go. I
yeah,
can.
cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second and just let everyone do their thing. So idea 4 doesn't have a sticky note anymore for some reason.
Oh, that's my fault. I was grabbing
Yep.
a spot down, so I can just go back up there.
That's fine. I'll put that back in there.
I'm messing with your design here, Mel. I'm sorry. I
No,
just didn't want to. I was worried I was
that's
going to
okay.
paste it in and it was going to take over the whole board. So
No, that's fine. Just, yeah, I'm here to assist. And is this your board, Roz? So, you're on mute. Sorry, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Right, it
I'm
can
on
wait till
board
we get to
4.
that point.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Am I on Andrew's board? I think I've claimed board
you're trying
4
to claim my spot here, Oliver.
with
I'm
my
kind of upset.
clouds. Sorry.
I like your
I'll
clouds.
go to 5. I'll take my stuff.
Do we need more boards? I can create another board.
I went all the way down to number 9.
I'm gonna create 10.
There's no real visuals with mine.
That's all right.
And it's probably an unrealistic idea.
And the idea is that we cast a wide net and then we converge like a diamond, as Oliver would know.
Indeed. A double or
Double diamond.
triple.
Yeah, no, don't forget the
Yes.
double diamond.
So this is the first half of the diamond.
This is the fun part.
Yeah. All right. Now, Christian, we've got 2 boards on top of each other, I think. So do you want me to just move that one out of the way?
Sorry, Mel, you said? It's
I saw that
2?
there was 2 boards on, oh, there was 1 board on top of another board.
I don't know. I was
Sorry.
creating a number 10.
Yeah.
Is correct? I see correct in my screen.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
fine. That's good. Nice. I'll put your name on the note.
Thank you.
Oh, lots of ideas. This is awesome. If you've finished sort of with what you're doing, maybe just drop a comment in the chat, and then we'll just kind of leave it open until everyone's ready. Looks like most people are done. Is there anyone still going with this?
I can keep adding ideas, but I'm good to chat.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I might close
I'm
that
missing
off,
the
but
I was
yeah.
enjoying that music.
Cool. All right. Well, I think I will share my screen again. Let's go. All right, let's start with this. Andrew, do you want to talk about what you've put forward?
Sure. So I just cast a pretty wide net and spent a lot of time just capturing a bunch of screenshots of different apps. My filter was just like, what is a way to kind of start telling a story, or what is a way to kind of interact with a story? I know that last time we were talking about linear versus non-linear, and then we talked about the idea of story maps. So if you go along the top, you can just see I've got it. There's sort of like storytelling
Yeah, so
attributes, but I have.
what I'm
Oh,
doing now is I'm actually following you in Figma, so you're in control of the Figma board. So wherever you put your cursor, we'll be able
all
to see.
right, great. So you're seeing me there.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe you can just zoom in just a tiny bit.
Yep. Sure. I can.
So, and then yeah, if we start in the left column. So I started with the idea of story maps, and just a quick kind of usability tip: if you click on the image, the screenshot in question, there's alt text that tells you which app it's from, because I took so many different ones that I was like, wait, which is this one from? So just if anyone's curious, you can kind of so this first one, for example, is from Ahoy from Picardy, or however you pronounce it. So the story maps are kind of like abstracted representations of a story. You know, there's the one from Bjork there. There's one called Anua. There's like the Silk Road all the way down. And then I also included as a distinction is geographical maps. So where they're actually using, geography, but sometimes they're mixing it up. Like the one Heliosphere, the fourth one down, it kind of has a globe next to the image, and you can kind of spin the globe and see. And I know as a group we're kind of already pretty distributed across various continents. So I thought that could be a nice way, a different way in, and then the Mexico one at the bottom there.
So do you think, like, as an overarching theme there, like the mapping concept is something that would sort of be a metaphor or a storytelling device, that if we're going along a journey, then some kind of mapping device, is that where you're sort of heading with that?
Like I think I picked up on the idea from last week's discussion of being able to accommodate both linear and non-linear paths. And so, and something like the Bjork one, for example, you can see there's like a pretty straight line following the story through the 9 chapters or whatever, but then you could jump ahead to the one that you're interested in. And obviously, there can be forking paths too. It doesn't have to be just a straight line, but there is something powerful and very intuitive about just having that kind of map. And then maybe that's even, an interaction you can bring up. There's one app where you kind of, and this is obviously another one we're all familiar with, but where you rotate your wrist and, get a little kind of, menu that you can then access the map at any time. So yeah, I think maps, I'm generally a map enthusiast. I think they can be very powerful.
Cool.
And so the geographical ones are just a variation on that. And then just to expand on the rest of the note, like I looked at like little film intros or segments. I think D-Day did this really well. Skatrix, a skateboarding app, has a really nice kind of intro where you kind of jump through, that kind of sets you up for the story. And then like onboarding and tips, do we want to have something that kind of explains how to use it? Again, D-Day does that, and Bjork's app does that. And then I was just sort of looking at pass-through versus immersion. And, maybe you start in a pass-through and then you kind of wrap around. I think I always like Gucci did that really nicely. And there's other apps that do that where you kind of like can get pulled into the story, but maybe you start, with it kind of in pass-through and then it kind of wraps around you. And then I saw, Sam, you had something similar, but like just thinking about how interactive objects can be used. Like there's obviously D-Day again there. There's the Dave Attenborough one, like the whole world, but, and museum ones, and then again, right at the bottom there is the Bjork how
Yeah.
would we want to use hands if we did, and could they be like interactive objects as well?
Yeah.
So a bunch of different things to look at there, but just one to kind of, have different facets and then have that help spark discussion.
Yeah, cool. Would you be able to, on a sticky note, maybe just write out the apps that you've made reference to there?
Sure.
Maybe not right away, but when you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Does anyone have any kind of questions or thoughts that want to sort of dive into this?
I really like a number of aspects. I think there's things that we could definitely pull in, whether, Joe's been talking about the globe that spins in the chat, to work out where each of us is from and things like that. So there's a bunch of things I
Yeah.
think we could pull in.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about some pins? If we have like pins or markers for where everyone is on the map, those could change colors based on whether or not you viewed that piece yet or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's perhaps move on to Ollie. I'll let you talk.
Mine's just a quick one. I just sort of,
Yeah.
and it came to me, aspects of vision, right? Like it's almost too obvious, maybe. How we can use light and transparency, and the story. We start in this fog of what is, the future of spatial computing, and it's very unclear. And then the Apple Vision Pro, and also the community, as in the Step Into Vision community, helps clear that fog and starts to provide a path. And then, I don't know, just throw in transparency. And then we could use things like refraction for different aspects, whether that's skill sets or, the different elements of what we'll be talking about in the different videos, the different aspects, and then sort of future vision, what holds for the future, crystal ball type stuff. But just there seemed to be something there that might be worth exploring as an element. Don't want to go down the liquid glass path, obviously, but yeah, maybe something.
Yeah, I like the idea of like that sort of cloudy sky kind of clearing up. And I mean, the use of light and refraction can be really sort of, you can do a lot with that, I think.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
really
well, it's a very
responded to
visual
the,
medium, right?
yeah, the refraction is very powerful to me, like the way you can kind of have this unified thing that then breaks up into different aspects. So
Yeah, just a quick idea.
Cool. Does anybody want to add to that?
I was going to say we could
Combine the fog with the map ideas. Yeah.
Wow.
has anyone seen that app Fog of the World, where you kind of like, it overlays, like it's essentially just put in from Google Maps API, but then it tracks you. Like, I mean, if you're comfortable being tracked, which you are anyway, but it kind of like, it has through the fog, it kind of tracks your path, and you can kind of see where you've walked and where you haven't walked. And it goes all the way from like the local, like block by block, to you can pull out to the globe. So it's kind of really cool, and it's just you leave it on and then, you check back 3 months later and say, oh, I never walked down this block before, so it definitely playing with that idea of fog kind of clearing for navigation.
Yeah, we
Do
could
you want
show,
to put the link in the chat for the fog app?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
or whack it on the board.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd show you where you've been, what videos you've watched, right? Cleared of the fog, and there's still ones to uncover.
Something else that comes to mind with fog, I think like pre-Vision Pro, at least personally, working with like kind of the traditional XR workflow, it was usually a very difficult kind of onboard process. You're having to learn game engines, and like there's always some element of that with 3D work, I think, but I feel like Vision Pro with like bringing Swift and Swift UI and these more like traditional app dev kind of way of thinking to spatial. So I feel like that's another idea of like fog being cleared in some way.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have like some kind of dry ice effect, maybe in your environment, and you've kind of got the ability to sort of map out a room, and the dry ice kind of goes around your furniture or something. I think that'd be pretty cool. And then maybe it sort of fades away and shows a clearer path underneath, maybe.
Yeah, nice.
I like the way that the D-Day app kind of opens up and you get all of that those film strips sort of wrapping around your room, and
Yeah, I love that. It's funny because I spent a lot of time with that the other day, and I hadn't watched it since it first came out. And I think that's an addition. I don't remember that from when I first watched it, but that's a great example of what I was talking about with from pass through to immersion, because it does, you can, and then just having those film strips, and they're obviously, you could have those be interactive as well, but it really just pulled you into the story.
yeah, yeah, it definitely sort of captures your attention. Cool. Anything else on that one before we move on?
Not for me.
Thanks, Ollie. Rose, tell us a bit
Okay,
about
I haven't been able to bring much to the table here other than there
That's
is
right.
an absolutely totally brilliant USDC render of the Apple Vision Pro that I can get from
Mhm.
Alex Lindsay. He's offering it to everybody and it's fantastic. So I think
Yeah.
we were talking about taking it and making it interactive. So this, does anybody know Office Hours Global? Anybody part
No.
of it? Oh, okay. Well, it's been going for 4 years. It's a daily Zoom meetup with Q&A. It's about 5,000 plus film and media professionals from all over the world. The occasional Monday night version does Apple Vision Pro stories, and I think there's even another Tangent live show. So, I mean, I've been part of that community. There's quite a few Apple Vision Pro users. They have the YouTube link as well, and it's great for resources. It's great for finding talent, gigantic Discord, etc. But either way, so that's me watching it in the morning as I'm doing my diary. But yes, we've got that. We've got a really fantastic 3D render that's interactive, or that we can make even more interactive.
Yeah, cool.
But that's really all I can offer at this time.
Are we able to get like a high res Black
Oh
Magic
yeah.
USDZ?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking
All of
about.
that,
We can
yeah.
get that whole high res Black Magic. And as I say, this
I
one
thought you were
has,
talking about the Vision Pro
no,
model.
so I'm sorry. This is the Black Magic. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
a little foggy. This is the
No, that's
Black
right.
Magic Ursa in total detail. And at the same time, we can get the one that's labeled and we can get the one that's not. This is actually
fantastic.
being shown in Keynote, but the asset is there for
Yeah.
anybody that wants it.
Oh, wonderful.
So I will get it. But that's really all I
Awesome.
can offer at this time.
Yeah, no problem. All right, well, we might move to Sam. Tell us about what we've got here.
Great. Thank you all. These are wonderful ideas thus far. Really appreciate you sharing them. And apologies for including zero visuals on my mood board here. But I was mainly just thinking about structure. And so this is reiterating a little bit of what we talked about, but maybe adding a bit more detail in some areas. So we have projects that we can collectively determine that we want to profile, and then we can conduct interviews with the creators of each of those projects. And I think that focusing on spatial video and persona interviews makes the most sense. Maybe in some cases, if there's a compelling reason to do so, have it be more immersive, like Apple Immersive Video. But otherwise, keeping it those two. And ensuring that we have a compelling B-roll for each project. This could be screen recordings of the app in action, and maybe that's in a 16:9 aspect ratio. Maybe it's more expansive if there's a way to play it back in our experience that would be compelling. But the reason I mentioned 16:9 is because I'm thinking a lot about audience reach, and that we've got to be able to make this translate to 2D video. Not the
Yeah.
whole thing, but we need to be able to, for marketability, have a
Mm.
trailer or little snippets of content from this whole experience that will still be compelling when they're in 2D videos. So it can help us to do that if what is in the actual experience is designed for a 16:9 aspect ratio also to begin with.
Yeah.
For immersive video experiences where that can easily play back in a more immersive way, maybe it then makes sense to do that. And I also just think that there's an opportunity to maybe include some behind the scenes making of type content. So you have two different kinds of B-roll that way to intercut with the creator interviews. You have the experience in action, but also the making of. Like an even be able to see the space in which people create sometimes is interesting.
Yeah.
And then, as was referred to earlier, the idea of incorporating at least one 3D component, maybe something that lives in a volume, but some way of adding some interactivity, making use of the spatial aspects of the medium. And this is where we can maybe introduce nonlinearity with portals. Could be an opportunity to make use of ambisonic audio. And also the ability to contribute to the project as an audience member, the audience member becoming a creator.
Yeah, I think we can kind of create different experiences for the audience. So, we could start with the passive user that just wants to sit back and enjoy the show, and then the user that wants to kind of interact, and then a user that might want to contribute. So I think we can kind of keep in mind all of those different possibilities. So in terms of like contributing to the project, like did you have any thoughts on how that might sort of work?
How an audience member may?
What?
Like
Sorry?
The question is how an audience member may contribute to the project?
Yeah. Is that
I
sort of
think
leaving
that
feedback or leaving some kind of snippet
I think
or
that it would
uploading a file?
maybe depend on the projects that are being featured. Like there could be a way, maybe we think of one way for the audience member to give back in some way to create some artifact that's related to the project that's being profiled. And maybe it's not appropriate for every project, but if we had just a handful of opportunities to do that, it could be neat.
Yeah, I think with things like the Muse Pen and some of the creativity that can be done with those kind of apps, like if people are creating things with the apps that we're creating, like I think maybe there's an opportunity to sort of have showcase the work that's been done with the app. So, maybe that's an opportunity.
I do want to kind of push back a little bit on the project thing. I really envision this as a story about the people making things, not as a promotional piece about the apps that we're making. We can certainly mention them and talk about them in the context of what we're doing, but I don't want to frame it of like, here's Joe to talk about Project Graveyard. I want to frame it more of like, here's Joe and his story with Vision Pro and the Project Graveyard.
The challenges that he faced and
Yeah.
the.
So kind of keeping it people focused, where project is more of the B-roll. On the B-roll side, though, when we're talking about like the persona or spatial video, because we're in space, we could have B-roll on different layers or different windows, kind of hovering around. So we don't necessarily have to have them side by side or the same orientation every time. If somebody has maybe we're talking to 2 or 3 people from a team. We have 20 different clips of B-roll. We could have them kind of collages of them floating around and showing different things in the background. So there's a lot of, if anyone's used the app Photo Dome, that would provide a good kind of mental concept for what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I played with that a little bit.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to underline, Sam, the 3D component, because I think I talked about that a little bit in my screenshots as well. I think that D-Day does that really nicely with the artifacts like the helmet and the diary and the David Attenborough one, The Whole World, where you kind of open a drawer and pull out a skeleton. I think that there's a lot of possibilities there to have 3D components that are related to the story then kind of, as a way into a different kind of facet of the story.
Yeah, I think yeah, you could also have someone sort of talking about their journey, and then maybe there's like Polaroids floating around that sort of are the behind the scenes, but it's not distracting from the main focus, but it's a nice kind of it's a nice way to accent the story and draw people in.
And
Yeah.
perhaps it could be toggled on and off.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually,
definitely.
you could almost think about it as like the B-roll is like part of the environment where you could dismiss
Mm,
digital crown like you would with an environment.
Yeah.
yeah, cool. All right. Let's move on. Where do we go? Chris. Yeah, you're on mute, Chris.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
You
Cool.
weren't alone on the no images, so we're all set. Um, no image gang. Uh, so I just had a few ideas. I don't know if they're like super targeted to any particular thing, but first one just around theme. So just to me, like spatial computing is a really, it's like a very revolutionary technology, and like there's the way that we've always done things up until now, and then kind of what are all these new experiences that are um enabled by having, a true 3D canvas to play with. And so using a lot of like interactive, or using like the devices of today, it's a very like isolating thing of, all right, I'm on my computer, I'm kind of like in my own little world, or oh, I need to check my phone. I'm like looking away from my space and doing my little digital thing. It kind of like takes me out of, interacting with the person, or, being in my space. And so that kind of as a theme of like, you know, looking up back into the world feels kind of empowering to me. And so for this, actually applied to the project, and maybe, we have kind of a transition of like how your typical documentary experience would go, but then we start to like weave in and like at, not like necessarily starting all guns blazing, but kind of like leaning into it, kind of show the transition a bit of
Hmm.
what's kind of enabled by the new technology. Um, for the non-linear kind of storytelling ideas, I'd posted just this link to a Quest app that I really enjoyed, called Where Thoughts Go, which kind of plays with, this idea of representing things in a new spatial way. And I think that we could apply some of those ideas with like individual profiles or like individual stories. So like having these interactive elements that are representing kind of our different stories, but not necessarily just all being shown through video. Maybe like, in the app Where Thoughts Go, there are these like voice recordings, and there are these little like entities that are part of the space. And as you interact with them, they kind of like come alive and tell their story. So I think that could be that could be an interesting idea
Mm.
for like the non-linear part of it. Like if we want one through line main story that has like all the higher production value, but then also we want
Yeah.
the ability to like have
I
more
think,
content that people can contribute. It could be an interesting way to explore that.
yeah, I think that was kind of similar to kind of the thought process behind this kind of spinning rings concept that sort of takes Christian's work with the TEDx exhibition a little bit further in terms of having that interactivity to play different stories at different times, and being, people can kind of explore, at their leisure in an
Yeah.
interactive way. So,
Yeah, and I could see also part of it being like, maybe different, whatever the medium
Mm.
is of like what's being displayed, whether it's voice or like a little video or something, I could see those interactive elements changing based on where you're at in the story. So like if we have different environments for different chapters, or like even if it isn't like full on environments, like different mixed space, like
Mm. I think,
embellishments, themes.
yeah, I think
Like
in the UX and the design, we would want to allow the user to kind of go down a linear path, or jump in at a certain point, or kind of explore different topics that might be structured in a way that kind of really fills out the experience. Um,
yeah.
I
yeah, I
wonder if we
did.
want to. I'm just thinking about the and I just saw. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but Apple now is supporting more Gaussian splatting with, is it Snap or something? And there's like where you can just take a photo and then turn it into kind of like you know, a navigable kind of volumetric space. So that could be, and as we keep working, that capability is probably going to get more available. But just being able to kind of literally step into a scene, could be an interesting one to explore.
Yeah, and that's kind of like with that last piece there, the like, maybe one of the easier mass contributions that we could do is like different spatial scenes, right? Like being able to move around them like their memories. It's yeah, I think I saw that like Sharp
Yeah, Sharp. That was
the
yeah,
model,
yeah,
the kind of like enabling the Black Mirror-y. If you all saw the newest season with like him
right. That's Paul
like
Giamatti. Yeah.
navigating his thoughts, but something like that could be really interesting. It's like easy to source, but could be powerful still to kind of explore those scenes.
I think I think the spatial scenes would be well suited for this. I think those Gaussian splats may be a little bit too big. The ones that I saw were like gigabytes. Um, so if we have 75 to 100 people who are participating in this, that would be a lot of data. But the spatial
Yeah.
scenes is like uh, you can, if everyone can provide a good photo, and then we can generate the spatial scene, and we can kind of pre-vet them to make sure that they look good when they're converted. But being able to kind of transition between that 2D and spatial thing is kind of a magical part that Visualize gives us.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that was really everything that came to mind for me.
Nice. Thanks, Chris. All right, Joseph.
So this is kind of there's two ideas here. The one idea is not super realistic because it would require some legal sign off from Apple. Um, it's not impossible, but it would be difficult to get. But the idea of having like an actual 3D model of a Vision Pro that's in the space with you, that is kind of moving around like a little companion character. Maybe it's spinning around and it's projecting light out of the screens that maybe not the entire time, like constantly, but like for transitions between chapters and things like that, where like it's spinning around, doing a projector beam, a new section shows up, stuff like that. So I was thinking that it could move, it could spin, it could project clips, it could bounce off of surfaces. It could also be something we move around to draw the user's attention of like, we're over here, but we are about to transition you to over here, where we're going to have a different scene set up. Um, so I think that could be interesting, but I don't think it's necessary to do that with the Vision Pro. That was just the first thing that came to mind. But it could be a more abstract object or some other kind of relic, like some of the ones we talked about last week, like the paper airplane or
Mm.
just a little, a ball or sphere, something like that.
It could be something that is kind of like a lens,
Mhm.
like a camera lens, and
Yeah.
that camera lens could be pulled out of the Vision Pro, or it could be put on a camera, or it could be used in a lot of different ways. And maybe that sort of might connect with Ollie's idea of the light and the lens and
Mhm.
all of that kind of. I think those kind of ideas feel like they would maybe complement.
Mhm. So
The
this,
ca- the camera could even change, like if it was a still versus a film versus immersive film. It's like that would be a little way to kind of indicate what you're about to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, and we could even do that with more of a symbolic version of the different cameras, of like a little 3D object that has some different icons or images of the different types of content.
Yeah.
So the other idea here was actually kind of related to Oliver's idea with the glass and light. Using the frosted glass that we see all over Vision OS is kind of iconic for Vision OS. We can use it in Windows, we can use it in our video players and our controls, but we can actually apply it as a material to 3D objects as well. And it may not be, I think it's a good kind of like de-emphasize or like haven't visited yet state. So when Sam was talking about everybody having some kind of artifact to contribute, if we render the artifact in this kind of you haven't touched it yet glass, and then when you get there it it gets fully textured material and kind of becomes its thing. So I love the idea of like a whole bunch of those things maybe in the background, not even drawing attention, but just kind of like off to the background, above, behind, things like that, and they slowly come in and become real over time.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts on that? Anyone?
I just dropped that shot that Apple uses about the different video types. We could talk about iconography. Maybe we could use indicators like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, just the shapes of the screens is really appealing. It's like I will feel like it will feel really nice if you have on a stage, like if you are really small inside this huge Apple Vision Pro and you have these screens and the foam. I think it's like as a stage is appealing to me.
Yeah.
We could draw little 3D objects of those shapes there, like the different rectangles and domes and things like that.
And you could kind of transition I always like the 180 to 360 where you're kind of outside the half sphere, then all of a sudden you're inside the sphere. It's like that movement.
Yeah, I really think that could sort of connect well with like the lens as a metaphor, potentially. Cool.
I do have a contact with Apple Public Relations if we want to try to get legal permission to use the 3D model. They do have like this model is on their website, but they do have a like don't you dare use this in anything.
I did get one from Turbo Squid, but yeah. Cool. Let's go to Christian.
Yeah. So disclaimer, this is not my idea, right? So that's something I saw in 96, 95 maybe. And it was, go and check it. I mean, I love them. But anyways, to me, and this is really personal, right? To me, the Apple Vision Pro and the experience is it's really strong on the, how would you call it? Like at the time in a space, right? So this point that everything is kind of has some presence. To me, it's like everything I experience. It really becomes more solid when it's volumetric. When I have to cross it. When it has something I can grab. Something that can fall. When we did a TEDx, for example, people really enjoy the thing that you could take an experience and drop it, right? And kind of it's gonna fall to the oblivion, and then it's gonna appear, and you can throw it. And this interaction to make it more the existence of the memory is something that it calls my attention. So this project is in the process of memory. Originally is that you record a video and you have a path while you're recording the video. You track the path and then you remap each frame on that path. And that generates a sculpture, right? That you can watch the video crossing or following the same path. And you will place the video in the original place. So that means like you can, in one grasp, you can see how the camera traveled on that space, and you can go to the moment in the space that was there. So why this fits to me is if you see the graph that that Oliver put on Joseph's idea on the spectrum of new formats of video, right? To me, what is fascinating of that is how we are mapping a video to geometry. You know, the video on mesh. To me, it's like a fascinating, and when we have play with video layers on 3D models, it looks like a really like mapping. It feels like a really original. It's like it's really appealing. So to me, I will put these sculptures in the kind of what is going to go next after this Apple immersive video. How is going to be the immersive videos of the future or something like that. But let me connect to my screen because I have something. Yeah, it was working perfect until I present, of course.
Do you want to stop sharing? Is that?
No, no, it's my notes, and it's really hard to see. So
this is giving me interstellar vibes, like just accessing memories, like floating through space. And
so to me, the thing is like I do love the so before we have these maps, right? It was discussed at the beginning, right? We have all this. Oh, I'm so not eloquent at this moment. So Andrew mentioned about the story maps and geographical maps, and that's something I also kind of relate to. It's like, to me, it's like I had this experience in this place. I'm located in this space in time, right? And also the time capsule is like everything to me is kind of, again, it's like I would like to map the time that we are recording in a specific space and create a volume of that. It's no more than complicated than that. But I understand that pretty much the models that are behind the video formats that we're gonna use is something really rigid, right? It's like, and in fact, maybe we don't want to touch them. We want the immersive video 180 to be one immersive video 180. It's not trivial that the URSA records that, and that's why I think like maybe it's an opportunity to use this format for some idea, for the B-rolling, for the mundane, right? For kind of like the normal things and yeah, that's another maybe topic that I didn't have time, which is the daily routine, right? The normal, ordinary, everyday thing, right? It's like it's something that is also appealing to me. It's not grandiloquent, future, kind of crazy sci-fi. It's more like right now we are in a crazy sci-fi world, and we are doing. I mean, look at my persona, right? And I think we can mix those things, right? It's like a quotidian, ordinary, like a non-relevant, but at the same time really emotional, physical, that you can interact with. Something like maybe, yeah, I don't know. I find there is something to explore there. Yeah, if I didn't explain, please ask. And it's like it's hard, but if you have used the Vision Pro, right, which I know you do, some of you, is the presence is really, really strong, and this is a really emotional device, that, as we know, and I think if you mix both, you have a stage, you have a scenography, you have art, you have a sculpture, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna check out that link definitely.
Yeah, I am too.
A bit of that. Yeah.
It is a little bit like maybe again like the fog, clearing thing, but like as you experience and negotiate the app, you're blazing your own path through it, and then that becomes an artifact. I think that could be a really interesting way to think about it.
I was thinking that in the meantime, so yeah, maybe this is cheating, right? It's like I'm not adding another idea, but yeah, being able to record and make a movement, and you record being in the movement and create an object of that could be interesting. For example, using the Muse or something like that, right? It's like because these videos are like I take the camera and I'm gonna travel, right? But maybe you are sitting, right? So what about if we instead travel you to a movement and you convert kinetics to something else? And yeah, just to say, right, this, to me, this project can never be only visual, right? It's like we need to have this accessibility component, right? And this needs to be emotional, right? No matter the media and the way of consumption.
Consumption.
Yeah, but it's missing some ending in the word. Yeah, I'm not landing that.
but no, I'd like just building on that idea that, especially because I think, in some versions of what we're talking about, it could be especially the nonlinear aspects, could get quite large. And there's not going to be just, there could be the linear path, but there could be like multiple nonlinear paths. And so you could even share like, oh, did you see this? When I, here's my artifact, and I actually went to this area that no one else even knew was there. Or like I remember going to like immersive theater. It's like, oh, you didn't see that scene, you didn't go up that stair, and look at that, the punch drunk stuff that they've done. Sleep No More, that kind of thing, where it's this massive space and you can only navigate a bit of it at a time, but maybe that becomes a shareable thing.
So I have kind of an idea related to that with I think the documentary end up a relatively linear thing, but I think if we have some kind of object or relic that shows up for each person or organization, while their section, when those are unveiled, those can optionally be interactive and point to those longer stories or deeper dives in with people. So you could kind of go down the linear path and then just pop into a side room and come back and continue where you are. It would be interesting to kind of play with some ideas for that. But that could let us kind of have a relatively simple objective of building out the initial thing, and then being able to build on that with the objects. So those pointers for those objects could point to the longer profiles. They could also point back to their section. So we could almost use them like a table of contents. As you collect them, they become enabled as you visit them. And you can always find your way back to where they were in the main story or where they were in the library.
Mm.
And they also open up other paths, right? So you go down this, and you think it's a cul-de-sac, but then you get to the end, and actually that's when something else is revealed that's related from another part of the experience, So it'd be another way of kind of that kind of happenstance that is always exciting when you kind of stumble upon things,
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not a fit for this project, but don't forget that we have game center achievements. So, I mean, you can gamify this, and I know it's overloaded the word, but yeah, collecting the artifacts, it sounds like appealing to me. But anyways, I really want to also like underline. I love it, the B-roll concept of Sam. It's like I think the what you are not focused on, because it's like for all mankind, right? It's like you are going to put what is relevant for the story or D-Day, right? It's like you're going to interact with what is really kind of like the minimum artifacts that you need to understand the story. But yeah, maybe there is something that on what is not relevant, on the context, on the vibe, on the sensation that is yeah, really the silence, right? So to me, B-roll is really, really appealing on these things, not only just this laser focus that we're going to be efficient on telling a story.
Yeah. Cool. All right. What I might do is I might just quickly recap on some of the ideas that I put forward last week. So the first one was using that apple and the idea of growth within the community, something that can kind of be a metaphor for starting as a small object and then growing into an orchard or something like that. And then the second one was the idea of the stone, which could represent a stepping stone, a journey, something that builds, and then maybe something that becomes interactive in the way that maybe the user has kind of a custom gesture to levitate stones and kind of create some kind of magical power as the user. And then the third one was the paper plane. So using that as a way of kind of maybe transitioning or segueing between different chapters or different stories. And I'm really keen to kind of explore having a real world object within a video, like if I'm holding a cup or something, and then break that fourth wall or something where the object suddenly is in the user space, and that's like connected to the time code in the video, and somehow magically it comes out of the screen or something. So that's an idea that I'm really kind of keen to explore.
Yeah, I love that too. And I think this one, picks up on Joseph's idea too of like if this was like the camera is an object rather than a paper plane, but it is kind of transforming, but it's moving, this thing that kind of moves with you through the story and changes shape and, indicates the content as well. And as well as kind of being a wayfinding kind of device.
Yeah. Cool. So I think we've got some really amazing ideas, and I don't want to sort of rule anyone out. And I think what we'll probably end up doing is taking bits and pieces from a lot of these different ideas. We might have like a core idea that we kind of build upon. But yeah, definitely like these are things that we can kind of come back to as part of the process. But what I would like to do is, okay, so we'll do a little bit of a dot voting process. And the idea is just to kind of get a sense of, yeah, Roz, you had a
I got
question?
another meeting, so I'm gonna have to go.
Okay,
So I'll take a look at the
apologies.
recording. But
Yeah, sure.
fascinating stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for joining. Cool.
See you.
I also need to bounce, y'all, but this was good.
Okay.
It was nice meeting y'all.
No worries.
Thanks.
Okay. Is everyone having maybe another 15, 20 minutes? Is that
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
roughly? You got to head off. What I might do is I'll just set up the dot process for you guys, because if you want to come back to it later, we can just kind of, move the dots around the screen. I've set up, so I've got a dot for Joseph, Oliver, myself, Chris, Andrew, I'll create one for Jimmy. So I'm basically just putting people's initials in here to sort of kind of identify who we've got. Sam.
So while you're doing that, I wanted to ask the group, is it okay if I share some screenshots of this with the blog post? I'm going to do an update on Sunday to kind of let people know what we've been talking about in these workshops.
Yeah, that's fine with
Yeah.
me. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think I've got everyone's dots there. So maybe we'll finish up the session now, but in your own time, if you want to just take, let me just sort of do a little bit of an example. So just grab your group of little dots, and if you like an idea, just put it next to one of these or whatever. And that'll give us a bit of a sense of kind of what ideas kind of have a little bit more sort of strength within the community group.
I wonder if we could do kind of an equivalent of this for those who can't be here, where we can have some kind of mechanism where we can put these ideas somewhere and let people drop in a dot for the ones they
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think it is important for if people are sort of expressing that sort of opinion, it's important for them to understand the context of the concept. So,
Yeah. The other
idea
thing
is
that sort of stand. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, so some of these kind of boards that don't have the visuals, they might not convey sort of in an offline experience, but yeah. Any thoughts, Oliver?
I was just going to say some of them are not equivalents, for want of a better word, right? They're dealing with different aspects. So I think they're probably, whether there's some synthesis around that to sort of allow people to compare apples to apples, or whether these are elements that could be pulled out or attached to any idea. Maybe that synthesis needs to happen before we do a broader, if you did want to get a broader feedback. But
there's definitely a lot of overlap, so I think that's where it gets, tricky to just sort of vote for one.
Yeah, I think initially maybe we're just within this kind of group that's sort of been participating in this process, if we can kind of express our, leanings with the dot vote, and then we can kind of explore a way to kind of synthesize that for a broader.
So I'm curious for the folks who are here on the UX side, is anything on this board kind of unrealistic for a Vision OS app? It didn't seem like
I
to me like,
I think there's things that will be more complex, and but it's the curation of that, for want of a better term, right? Like we're not going to take a bit of everything and try and jam it in.
Mm.
It feels like there needs to be, whether that's a creative direction decision from Mel or from whomever, to sort of go, here's what we've taken into account the dot voting process. Here's elements of each that we think is going to work in a nice combination, because you can pull in bits and it'll just be a Frankenstein, or you can pull it in bits and it'll be complementary. So yeah, it feels like we need to get to a next point before it'll be directly input into the UX process, would be my comment.
Okay. So it
Yeah.
seems like we have some common ideas here. Like one of the common themes was like some sort of progressive disclosure where things shift from one state to another throughout the experience, whether that's the relics becoming active or people joining the library, things like that. I like the one that I like the most, or the idea that I like the most, that's probably the hardest to execute well, is the idea of some physical object that, I'm just holding something and gesturing with it when I'm speaking, hand it out of frame, and it pops out and flies away to the next person. That would be so cool. And
I think that would need a bit of a proof of concept to just kind of see if we can actually pull that off. But
yeah,
And it has a higher technical requirement or element of complexity, right, for everybody to be doing it, but not impossible.
A hybrid approach of it, where like, say it's a coffee mug, like it doesn't have to be a coffee mug, just it's a coffee mug in their hand, but they hand it out. It doesn't have to be a coffee mug necessarily. It could be to a little light ball that morphs out and it shows up. The next person, they grab it and it's a different prop or something like that. But having some kind of, I like the idea of having one object to pass around from frame to 3D, but if that becomes infeasible, we could still use a similar idea of like transitions from wherever the exit of one frame is to the entrance of another with some other objects.
Yeah, I think also with the concept of like a lens and like the liquid glass and the the crystal globe and that sort of thing, that's a really beautiful idea. But then how does the lighting interact in an environment? How do you, like, that's a really hard thing to replicate. But we might be able to pull it off. I don't know. I think some of these ideas we would need to do a little bit of kind of background feasibility
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, so that's kind of my hope with the next stage of this project is take some of these ideas, through the dot voting. Maybe the next meeting will be kind of a general community meeting to include the storytelling side of things, and kind of do not a handoff, but a presentation of like, here's what we've got so far, and then get the UX and the app team thinking about what do we need to do to start validating some of these ideas.
I think if we got it down to a short list, essentially, or here's 3 main concepts and here's 5 sub aspects or elements that we're thinking about, and we did the community meeting and people voted on that, like essentially Mel would present the 3 ideas, top 3 ideas that we've sort of thought through, and then these other things. And I think that would be enough context for people to give some input on in that community meeting, maybe.
And we don't necessarily have to pick them. We could, if we have 3 winning ideas, we could do early trials of each and see, like, there's enough people who are wanting to do stuff, so we can kind of coordinate the work.
Yeah, I think we kind of need to start getting the ball rolling pretty soon, so that we can sort of start thinking about getting content created. But
there are certainly elements of the UX that we can continue on without this, or in parallel. like I'd still be happy to run the UX meeting in 2 weeks, for example. And we got to deal with aspects of what are the elements of the metadata for each video that we're going to be able to filter on or to view things by, or so there's that aspect of the overarching concept model, which I think we could start without and then pull the story into that. So that's probably a workshop and a half in itself anyway. So
Yeah.
What kind of
One of the things that I spoke to Joseph about was the idea of a design language, and in terms of like, how we frame things, how we kind of set up a bit of a pattern for, how far are people away from the camera, what's the backdrop, what's the process, how do we make it conversational if that's the tone we want, and then kind of that creates a frame, kind of a design system for or a design language for how we kind of put the content together. We don't want it to look like just a mishmash photo album of just here's one thing to the next. There needs to be kind of that. So we're creating this kind of overarching metaphor through line that connects as a thread, and then we create a kind of consistent look and feel that ties things together and doesn't distract from the story that we're telling. But yeah, I think those things will evolve through the UX process. As
it's an interesting one because you also want to bring in an element of individuality, or certainly, that we're a global community. We don't want to sanitize it to the point where we're all on white backdrops, right? But
no,
but how can we give it that element of personality but still cohesion? So yeah, I think there's elements like that distance. The spatial personas is probably the easiest one, right? Like because we're all presented in the same way, but might not work across all. But I think if we have some
we
those
could
key
so
guidelines.
the spatial personas have those color gradient backgrounds that you can set in settings. We could maybe think about it. I think there's 6 or 8 of them. We could maybe think about color coding those based on the type of work or thing that someone is there to talk about. So, the video folks in one color and the devs in another color, something like that.
And we also spoke about people presenting some of their content in their native language, and then we have subtitles. So
Definitely.
I think we demonstrate the level of diversity. Having a global map of some sort wouldn't necessarily conflict with a story metaphor. So we can combine elements of the ideas that we put forward today into a broader through line. But yeah, I'm really happy with the ideas that came forward today.
Me too. Let me just see if I can nerd snipe Oliver on this one. That may be one of the most technical challenges of the project is usually with immersive media, our subtitles or captions would be embedded with the video or provided a separate file like time coded out. But you're gonna have so many unrelated video clips playing in different players. We're gonna need to come up with a way to get that data into maybe still following the same formats that you would use in a video player, but how can we show that as something that's relative to the user that moves with them, but is always accessible to them where they need it, and maybe a little bit of customization, but it needs to be drawing from different places. So it's going to be, I've been thinking about that one since we started the project. I'm like, how are we going to do that?
Yeah, I think that's where like the early work with the UX and the proof of concept sort of comes into play. We kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work, and we optimize it, and then we create a system of patterns that we can replicate.
Okay, so next steps, we have our dot voting to do, right? So we'll kind of nudge each other about that over the next week or so. We will tentatively schedule something that first week of January, but it might be the following week, realistically. So the week of the 5th. So it might be best to take off the next 2. Do you think it's realistic to do some kind of weekly or bi-weekly cadence, even if we're kind of handing off that meeting from one group to another? Like, this is the story meeting, and next week we're going to do UX, and then next week we're going to talk dev. Or do you think it's Is that too much to ask?
I think we can initiate things. I think we wouldn't want to go too far without coming back together, for want of a better term. I'm going to be on holidays in Japan for that week of the 5th, for the next two weeks after that, essentially. I can probably still jump on a call, obviously, but probably not
Right.
run
Maybe
workshop.
if we could get you a UX workshop on the 29th or 30th, would that be possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of December?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be around, so yeah, anything's fine with me.
Okay. We'll throw it in the Discord and see, have people kind of pick times that work for the folks who are running it, and then gather everybody else into it. Anything else? Any pressing ideas or concerns? Or
Quick random question, from a UX perspective, but is there any thought about tools used for prototyping? Like it seems like obviously with this, prototypes would be really helpful, but how would we go about that for the Vision Pro? Like what level of fidelity?
Yeah, there's all those.
The big question, right?
Maybe I opened a can of worms there. I was just curious.
We'll need
the
some
bugbear
dev
of the
help.
platform.
Everybody hop over to Quest and get Gravity Sketch.
I felt dirty putting a MetaQuest link into that board. Look, I think we've got a ways to go before we hit prototyping tools, but it's a great question. And I think from a UX perspective, if we can just define certain aspects that we want to explore, certainly the sort of the presentation of the videos and the filtering of those, like all the videos to start with, I think is a key thing that we might be able to go, okay, well, this dev is really good at that element. Let's get them in tool of their choice just to explore what that might look like. I think it's probably more, what are we trying to achieve and what can get us to a prototype fast enough to visualize it in whatever tool they want to, they're most comfortable with. Great point.
So Paolo's been pretty quiet. Are you there, Paolo?
Yeah, I just got back. Sorry about that. I was
No,
driving.
that's fine.
I have a flight this evening, so I will
No,
have to
that's
catch
fine.
up on recording and see what's happening. But I'm here.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we can lean on Paolo for maybe the idea of having an object in a video and then time coding it so that the object comes out of the video or something. Maybe there's a quick opportunity to explore that. I don't know, Paolo, that's something you might be keen.
So yeah, you
to
are
think about.
able to have objects follow the time code of a video.
We were thinking of maybe I'm holding a coffee mug in my hand while I'm talking and gesturing, and then I hand it out of the video frame, and it becomes a 3D object in space, and then somebody else picks it up, something like that. So kind of like bumping in and out of different video frames. See, Sam?
So I am thinking of, so we have to figure out how are we implementing the video programmatically, because I had this conversation about immersive video, 180 and half immersion and mixed immersion. They told me when you are in full immersion, you cannot show hands, you cannot do interaction because the video takes precedence over the entire space.
Can we do it? Is it like a windowed, like maybe a spatial video that's windowed?
You might implement.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have a ton of 180 or 360 in the kind of linear state. There may be like a couple of moments of something special, but I think most of the time the user if this is 40 minutes long, I would say like 38 and a half minutes of it would be rectangles of spatial video and personas and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, then that's fine. It'll be floating, and then you can have, the only thing I'll probably defer and ask through testing is, do we do a USDZ with the animation of it coming out of the frame on cue, and then we swap it to an interactive object. But we cannot take an object that the user is grabbing and take it away from them to be part of the scene. So once they have it floating with them, because I once thought, can you grab something that someone's holding? You can't do that. So it's like ownership of objects. How are we doing those
Mm.
ownership, and what are those objects? Yeah. What are the ownerships of objects? What are those objects, and what parts in the video are we revealing that? So
I kind of like that as we talked about those objects in space. I kind of like that as almost a secondary pause mechanic. If the user grabs something, maybe Christian was talking and I grabbed his relic, we can't, like, Christian is just kind of waiting for you to release it before he hands off the documentary to the next person. Like you stalled progress until you let go or something like that.
what if you want to look at something while it's part of the story? Well, that'll be a user experience design, is when an object is grabbed in a video, does that pause the video? Because that language has to carry through every other video. Can't be a different language per different person.
Mm.
So I'm sorry, I don't even know what's happening, but I'm just like ripping off what you're
Yeah,
throwing.
no, I think it's important to sort of kind of flesh out what the limitations and possibilities are. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we
what-
can
And
then explore it.
really important point about consistency of behavior. You know, once
Yeah.
we set those protocols in place, we have to use them everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, depends on what
Mm.
those objects are. If the objects must not be heavy while we're playing video, because it'll freak out. I know Gucci has done this for some of their experiences.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if no, that I think that's really cool. Like the object itself,
Yeah.
that's the thing. If we grab an object and why would they stop? Like, here is a mug that I used to have when I was young. It was or something, and then you grab the mug, and then it'll make sense if the mug maybe has contained narration that's focused on it only, instead of it moving the narration forward. But really, you didn't even realize that you've transitioned from a narration in the object versus the narration in the film. The film has to stop. So when you put it back, the film continues, because the film doesn't have to talk about the object. It just tells you maybe the story of the object. I'm just riffing off things like, how do you seamlessly transition from that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because I think it'll be cool. You'll have like objects with like 20 minutes of narration, and then you forgot that, wait, isn't the movie supposed to be going? And then you're like, oh, I didn't have to put it back. When you put it back, the movie continues, and you're like, crap, I just spent like 30 minutes on this object itself.
Yeah. I mean, in the D-Day Soldier, I think it opens up like you see an image, a video of a house, and there's snow all around, and then all of a sudden in your environment there's snow falling.
They bring the snow in, yeah.
Yeah, which is, a lovely idea, but like, how can we take that a step further? Like where, there's an object in the video, and then it transitions into your real space somehow. I don't think it necessarily needs to be interactive. So it could be just kind of a USDZ animation of some sort that then gets triggered by that time code. And maybe it's something that could be repeatable in some way. And if it was like a paper plane, maybe there's just a slightly different flight path that it takes. So, if we start with a simple object and we create a few different flight paths around the 2D screen, maybe that's just basically triggered by the time code. And then
Yeah.
it's maybe connected to the video somehow.
Yeah, so one example that kind of reminds me of this is the For All Mankind app, where they have that it's like a cassette tape. So it's like you have to physically like pick up the cassette, put it into a cassette player, and then that kind of opens up another like part of the story. It's like, oh, these are like the mixtape that I can't remember that one of them made, for the other person. So it's kind of like an additional like immersive thing. But yeah, it is like tied to the story, but it's also kind of like one of these like hidden features or cool sneak peeks.
Yeah. Cool.
No, I think this is really cool and exciting. I like having 3D objects float. I was toying about this in one of the Lalo songs about a Filipino lantern, and I may have spent way more time on the 3D and never finished the 3D that I realized coding and implementing this would be impossible, since Christmas is like next week. So that I have some I've started, but I haven't done anything implemented yet with it. So, yeah, I think it's cool.
Cool. Well, we will get the UX workshop scheduled and start to think about the schedule moving into January. In the meantime, everybody do some dot voting and kind of continue discussing any of those ideas in the Discord. I would like to,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
think
try to get as much conversation going there as possible because I think a lot of people just keep dropping in and seeing nothing going on and then they drop out. So those of us who are kind of leading different teams, let's try to throw some thoughts in the channels and try to get people talking. And
Yeah, for on my side on video, I guess I just want to know uh what stories do they start? Do they need to 3D scan an object, and what are cues that we need to do to schedule so that we can start scheduling that, and then
I don't think we're anywhere. I don't think we're ready to schedule shooting with people to actually do like final clips for the documentary. I think we're closer to like let's get some test footage that could possibly be throwaway.
Okay.
Because I think some of these
Yeah.
ideas of like how we do these objects together or tie these story devices together is gonna blend towards the story structure as well. Because we still have to kind of we had talked earlier on the project of having 3 to 5 questions that we ask everybody, and those questions might be driven from some of this story section or from
Got
this
it.
story device.
Yeah, I think once we go into the filming, we need to have a really good understanding of that design language and the process so that we can kind of make it repeatable to a degree.
Yeah, like what are we asking people? What should
Yeah,
design language stuff, relics.
What I was going to say is that as you're doing the dot voting, like if you have any comments or anything you want to leave on any of the ideas, just grab one of the sticky notes or leave a comment and yeah, just explore the idea if you want. There's no
Cool.
hard and fast rules about this process.
Cool.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and stop the recording.